Living in Salt Lake City is so much more than just the mountains, the Utah Jazz, or the Mormon Church. You might hear rumors that Salt Lake City is just another small metro market with nothing to do, but I'm gonna give you the top 5 reasons why everyone is absolutely wrong about Salt Lake City. I'm here to set the record straight and give you the details that nobody else will. So today, let's talk about the top 5 reasons why people love living in Salt Lake City that should not be taken for granted. And number 5 on this list is usually the make or break reason why people will or will not move to Salt Lake. A few years back, when I was considering making my move to a new city, we looked at all different places, and coming from a military background, I had really lived in every corner of the United States. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, went to school in Southern California, and I was stationed on the East Coast and in the South, so I've truly seen what it's like to live all across the country. When I was considering moving to the Mountain Time Zone, I looked at different markets like Boise, Montana, Denver, and even Phoenix. And there's a few things in particular that were absolute deal breakers for me. Now, one of those was close proximity to the mountains. I didn't want to have to drive several hours just to go for a hike. We also wanted to be in a growing area where a lot of other young couples were moving to. Salt Lake City definitely checked that box. And last, we wanted to be in really a family-oriented community. That was really important for me and my wife. So once we finally moved here and we got settled in and we started doing some exploring, I drove around downtown Salt Lake City to see what was going on in the area, to see what that urban lifestyle had to offer. We even drove to some of the more mountain resort communities such as Park City to see what all the hype was about and to see what it was like to live in Park City. And we also drove down to Utah County to some of the more newer communities that have been growing a ton lately, such as Lehigh and Provo. Now, when we first moved here, we really didn't know anyone, and at first it felt kind of lonely. And then one day I was invited to attend a free 3-day retreat with other veterans up in the Wasatch Mountains. And as we were getting to know each other over those 3 days, there was really a common theme that I started to pick up on. As people were introducing themselves and talking about their backgrounds, I noticed that most of the veterans there actually didn't grow up in Utah. In fact, most people had relocated to the Salt Lake City area after their military service. That was definitely an aha moment for me, realizing that it was actually relatively easy to find other people who had similar interests, even though we didn't necessarily grow up here in Salt Lake City. And even though Utah isn't necessarily known for being one of those super diverse places, if you're willing to be open-minded, it's actually relatively easy to find other people who have similar interests and beliefs that you do. The Salt Lake City area is definitely more than just the famous ski resorts or the religious culture. Over the last few years, the Salt Lake City area has become more and more diverse, so depending on what you're looking for, you can really find it just about anywhere. Whether that's the more eclectic vibe in the Sugar House area, you're gonna find a bunch of boutique shops and some really cool restaurants, or the more sleek, modern look like you might find in the Silicon Slopes of Lehigh. Truly, every corner of the Salt Lake Valley has something different to offer. If this is your first time on the channel, my name's Scott, and I'm your guide to relocating to Salt Lake City. We help people buy, sell, and relocate right here in the Salt Lake City area, and we make the best videos about what it's like to actually live here in Salt Lake City. So if you're thinking about making that move, subscribe to the channel and reach out to us. Our contact information is in the description below and pinned to the top of the channel. Now, if you've made it this far into the video and you already live here in Utah, make sure to comment below what's your favorite part about living in the Salt Lake City area. Now, recently, one of my buddies was visiting Salt Lake City to come check out the ski resorts. That's a really, really popular thing to do, especially in the wintertime. He was visiting from the Washington, D.C. area, which is completely different than Salt Lake City. So I want to show him what Salt Lake City had to offer. Now, I took him to dinner downtown. That's where some of the best restaurants in the area are located. And then we went to the Delta Center to watch the NHL's newest team, the Utah Hockey Club. Now, we went and we checked out the game. We had a great time. But what a lot of people don't realize is the Delta Center is more than just where the Utah Jazz play. They actually have a ton of different events throughout the year. Now, besides the Utah Jazz and the Utah Hockey Club, the Delta Center also hosts a bunch of college basketball tournament games during March Madness. In fact, I had the opportunity to go last year and it was a ton of fun. The Delta Center also hosts some really cool things besides sports, like a Monster Jam event, and they even have concerts throughout the year. In fact, Justin Timberlake is coming to visit in just the next few months. The Salt Lake City area also has a bunch of different museums, different theaters and art centers, as well as some downtown hotels where they host conferences or mastermind meetups that can be a great opportunity to meet other people. Over this past summer, I even attended some local car shows where you can go and check out some really vintage cool cars. So for people that are into vintage cars, that was a really fun opportunity. There's even a bunch of farmers markets in really every major suburban area across the Salt Lake Valley. It's a really fun opportunity to go see some local vendors, to buy some local food, and to get out of the house. The moral of the story is no matter what you're into or what your hobbies are, you can really find just about anything in the Salt Lake City area. And even though I've lived here for several years, it seems like I'm continuously finding new spots, new things to do, and new attractions. Now, number 3 on the list, Utah is truly an outdoor paradise. In fact, I've never lived anywhere else in the country that has exactly what Utah has to offer. Now, of course, everyone knows about the world famous ski resorts, but that's just the beginning. Because we have 4 distinct seasons, there's really outdoor opportunities and things to do throughout the year. Of course, we're talking about places like Park City, Little Cottonwood Canyon, and Big Cottonwood Canyon. We have some of the best skiing across the country, and a reason why people come to visit Utah all the time. When it comes to hiking and biking, we have some really cool trails that are really just a short 5 to 10 minute drive from Salt Lake City up in the Wasatch Mountains. The Lake Mary Trail, the Living Room Lookout Trail. For cycling enthusiasts, we have the Jordan River Trail that goes through the middle of the Salt Lake Valley and has panoramic views of the mountains. Now, if you're unfamiliar, there's a really cool area in northern Utah County that's called Thanksgiving Point, and they offer events and cool things to do throughout the year. Now, this past Christmas, my family and I went to an event called Luminaria. I had never heard of this before, so I showed up kind of not really expecting what it was going to be all about. It turned out being one of the coolest outdoor experiences I've ever had. Luminaria is essentially a massive light show where you and your family can go walk around this massive area where you can check out all these really cool lights. They even have a fire and ice show. They usually host these events from November to January, so right around the holiday season. In fact, on New Year's, they even have a New Year's event with fireworks. So if having access to the outdoors and being in close proximity to nature, Salt Lake City might be the perfect fit for you. Now, I recently had a client who relocated to Salt Lake City, and his company not only paid for his moving expenses, they also gave him per diem, and they covered a majority of his closing costs to include a home inspection. And this is a story that I actually hear quite frequently of people getting jobs in Salt Lake City. Now, Utah has one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country, so if you can't find a job here, I really can't help you. Our unemployment rate hovers around 3% and has for the last several years. The economy here is booming. Utah was ranked as the #1 overall state in the US News and World Report for the last several years in a row, and we rank in the top 5 in things like economy and fiscal stability. Now, you're probably a lot like me. When you're exploring a new area, especially someplace where you're considering moving, you really want to find that location that makes sense for you and your family. So some of the key considerations for us when we moved to Salt Lake City was living relatively close to the freeway where it was easy to get across the Salt Lake Valley. We also wanted to be in close proximity to the outdoors where we didn't have to drive super far just to go for a hike. We also wanted to be in a suburb that was relatively family oriented and had some high quality restaurants, grocery stores, and really the things that we needed access to on a week-to-week basis. Now let's talk about the Salt Lake City housing market here for a second. Salt Lake City has been growing a ton, especially recently. In fact, even in the last 12 months, we've seen a 5% increase in appreciation with home prices going up. Now, that's also true across the country, but particularly in an area like Salt Lake, where a lot of people want to relocate to, you'll notice that home prices have been continuing up. And this is in a market, even with some uncertainty with the presidential election and high interest rates. Despite these factors, we've still seen incredible growth in the housing market. What's really cool about the Salt Lake City area is even if you're looking for new construction, yes, we are landlocked because we're between mountain ranges. We have the Utah Lake and we have the Salt Lake, but there's still areas where you can find brand new townhomes and single family homes under $500,000. And if your budget affords you a little bit more, say between that $600,000 to $800,000 range, you can find some incredible houses in some highly desirable neighborhoods. One of the advantages of the housing market here is that our property taxes are actually relatively low compared to other markets such as California and Texas. Even our sales tax is relatively low compared to the rest of the country. Now, the average sales price in Salt Lake County as a whole is about $625,000. And even though these home prices are projected to continue coming up over the next few years, there's still opportunities in this market where you can find a really good deal whether you're looking for a resale home or new construction. Now, when it comes to living in Salt Lake City, the hardest part is definitely finding the right area, and it's gonna be a little bit different for everyone. So if you're exploring the Salt Lake City area, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We do different vlog tours, we check out different houses and different communities. In fact, you can check out some of our latest ones here. And of course, if you have any questions or if you're thinking about relocating to the Salt Lake City area, make sure to reach out to us. Our contact information is below. Talk to you next time.